I was at the hospital sitting in the waiting area feeling drained and weak when a nurse suddenly reached out, grabbed my arm. Without warning, her grip was firm, steady, her eyes wide with urgency. She leaned in, whispering quickly, "Don't let them take you inside." My whole body instantly froze, confusion flooding my tired thoughts. I asked her why softly, and she leaned even closer, lowering her voice even more. "They're not real doctors here." Before I could even react, the door directly ahead opened and two men wearing white coats stepped out silently together. Before I continue, please remember to subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. And comment below telling me where you're watching from tonight. My name is Clara Hayes. I'm 27 years old and I work as teacher that night. I was sitting at the hospital waiting area because I had fainted earlier in the day while teaching my mom. Mary insisted strongly on bringing me in safely, and my older brother James came along trying to joke and keep the mood light. I honestly wasn't very worried. I kept telling myself calmly it was just stress building or not eating enough lately. But I noticed the worry on my mom's face clearly every time she glanced at me. The waiting area felt ordinary, bright lights humming softly above the sharp smell of disinfectant and shoes squeaking on tiles. Nurses moved quickly through halls. Doctors passed holding clipboards tightly. Patients sat quietly in chairs, some clutching cups of water. Others wrapped in thin blankets. Everything about the place suggested that I was completely safe. I sat between Mom and James, trying hard to reassure them. James joked, trying to smile, "Maybe you wanted skipping grading." I smiled at his teasing, grateful for his distraction attempt. My mom shook her head and replied firmly without smiling, "This isn't funny at all." She could have hit head. Their back and forth made me roll my eyes slightly, but deep down I knew they had reason to worry. After a short, quiet wait, a nurse approached and asked me to come with her for some routine medical checks. I stood slowly gripping my bag, and that's when suddenly another nurse I hadn't noticed before stepped forward far too quickly. She grabbed my arm, firmly pulling me slightly toward her, and leaned close to whisper so only I could hear her voice. Was sharp, controlled, but kept deliberately very quiet. "Don't go with them, please. Don't let them take you." I blinked, staring at her, confused, and whispered back softly, "What do you mean exactly?" Her eyes darted toward door, then snapped back to me. "They're not real doctors," she said, her voice tight with urgency. I didn't understand what was happening. My mom and James stared, confused by my sudden pause, and just then the door in front of us opened and two men in white coats stepped out together, ready to lead me inside. The nurse's warning echoed loudly inside my head, repeatedly, "They're not real doctors." I sat frozen in place, unsure if I heard right. My mom's hand pressed gently against my arm, urging movement, and James tilted his head toward the open doorway. "Come on, Clara, let's go," said, trying to sound light, but I noticed the crease of concern between his eyebrows. The two men stepped forward. At first glance, they looked the part: clean, pressed uniforms, professional shoes, clipboards in hand, but the longer I stared, the more something felt wrong. One man avoided eye contact, his gaze flicking around room. The other gripped his clipboard so tightly his knuckles whitened. And then I suddenly realized neither man wore ID badges. Every nurse and doctor tonight had badges clipped, clearly visible. These two men had none. I swallowed, hard, feeling dizzy, my throat suddenly dry and tight. My mom leaned close, whispering, "Kara, don't be difficult. They're just here to help." Her voice was firm, yet shaking slightly, as if convincing herself inside it herself. The nurse warned me before. Her name tag read Evelyn, stood nearby silently, a few feet away, watching, her eyes locked firmly on mine. She didn't speak again, but offered a small, quick shake of her head. Subtly, almost invisible to others, nearby, my heart pounded loudly inside, drowning out hospital sounds around us. One of the men stepped closer, sounding calm, smooth. "Miss Hayes, we need to run some scans. Nothing serious, just routine checks." He reached out, guiding motion toward the open doorway ahead, but every instinct screamed retreat inside me, urging escape now. James noticed the movement too. He raised an eyebrow slowly and asked calmly but sharply, "Which department are you from?" His tone sounded casual outwardly, but sharp tension hid beneath. The man smiled too quickly, far too quick, and replied, "Diagnostics." That was it, nothing else, no details, no room number, no explanation followed after the answer made my skin crawl uncomfortably with dread. I shook my head slightly and whispered urgently to James, "Something's wrong, something feels off." That nurse said they're not real doctors. His expression changed instantly, the humor vanished completely, his eyes hardened with focus. "What did she say?" He asked quietly, leaning closer. "She said not to go." I replied, struggling to speak. James straightened, stepping between us, and the men protectively. "Now, can we see identification, please? My sister isn't going anywhere without that." The taller man's polite mask slipped slightly. "Then, sir, this isn't necessary now. She needs medical attention urgently. Please don't interfere." His tone remained calm, but edged sharp with impatience leaking through clearly the air in waiting room. Grew tense and heavy quickly. My mom shifted nervously, whispering, "James, don't make trouble." She looked torn, conflicted deeply, wanting trust in authority figures, but seeing fear in children's eyes. Evelyn stepped forward firmly, her voice steady and clear. "She's not cleared for transfer. Sit back down." Her words rang louder, now loud enough for others nearby to notice. Instantly around, heads turned, patients looked up, a quiet murmur began spreading. The men exchanged a glance, quick, sharp, full of meaning. I caught it clearly, though. A flash of irritation, maybe even anger, crossed briefly. One of them reached out and grabbed my arm harder, more forceful than before now. "Miss Hayes, please cooperate. It will be easier this way." That touch sent ice through my entire body instantly. I pulled back sharply, trembling, my voice shaking as said, "No, I'm not going with you." James stood taller, blocking them completely now. "Now back off," he said firmly, without hesitation, his voice carried across room, drawing more watching eyes. The men didn't retreat immediately. Their eyes flicked toward Evelyn, who stood arms crossed firm, her expression unyielding and strong. Finally, the taller one muttered, "We'll be back," and they stepped toward door together slowly and deliberately, but as they turned away, one glanced over shoulder at me with dark eyes. The look twisted my stomach. It wasn't a doctor's look or any professional concern. It was something darker, predatory. Something that made me feel like prey being sized. As soon as they left, Evelyn hurried over quickly, crouching beside me, voice low, firm. "You did the right thing. If you had gone with them, you wouldn't have come back alive. I've seen them before there. Not on staff, no one knows how they keep getting in." My mom gasped sharply, covering her mouth with trembling hand. James looked at me tight-jawed. "We're not leaving you alone," he said without hesitation. I sat trembling, trying to understand everything. Crashing down mentally. I had come here because I fainted earlier, I thought. I was safe, surrounded by professionals here, in a place meant for healing and care. But now every hallway felt threatening and unsafe. Every open door felt like a trap, waiting. And the worst realization was danger standing nearby, just a few feet away, disguised perfectly in the uniform I was supposed to trust. I sat frozen in chair, trying to calm fear storms swirling violently inside me. My mom's hand shook as she clutched mine, eyes wide disbelief after hearing Evelyn's warning. James leaned forward, voice steady but tense and urgent. "Clara, we need to decide right now. Do you trust her?" I looked at Evelyn, standing ready, her eyes sharp, posture tight, every part ready to fight. She wasn't joking, mistaken, or confused about this. She risked her job, maybe even her safety, just to warn me. That had to mean something real and serious. My chest rose, fell quickly, as I whispered softly, "Yes, I do." My mom frowned, voice cracking softly, "But they looked like doctors. What if you're refusing real treatment? What if this makes things worse?" Her words cut into me deep and painfully true. She was right. One way I came here, because I fainted something wrong, but how could I walk willingly into a room with people Evelyn swore weren't even hospital staff? James placed hand on her shoulder, speaking firmly now. "Mom, listen to her. Something isn't right here. Look at Clara. She's terrified. We can't ignore." That? Evelyn crouched slightly, whispering urgently. If they come back, they'll push harder next. Don't go with them under any circumstance, ever. Stay where there are people around you always. Don't let them isolate you alone. Her words lit fire inside. Me, the fear didn't disappear, but transformed into resolve. Determination replaced helpless dread, I realized. I couldn't just sit waiting helplessly for those men return. I had to decide how to handle this, either pretend everything fine or stand my ground. Even if paranoid looking, I took a shaky breath and said quietly, firmly, I'm not leaving this waiting room until I see a real doctor, one with identification and paperwork. If they try to move me again, I'll scream if I have to. My voice wavered first, then strengthened with every spoken word. Evelyn nodded, expression softening with visible relief. Now good. That's exactly what you should do. My mom squeezed my hand, still torn inside deeply, but I saw her eyes glisten as she whispered, All right, I trust you. That was all I needed. The decision changed everything around us. Instead of sitting passively hoping nothing would happen. I had drawn a line. And once I did, James immediately stepped into the role of fierce protector. He moved his chair much closer to mine, positioning himself firmly between me and the door now, his jaw set tight with unyielding resolve and quiet fury. If anyone touches her again, they'll regret it, he muttered softly under his breath nearby. Evelyn left briefly, promising she'd return with someone from administration who could verify exactly who was meant to be on duty tonight officially. Every second she was gone stretched painfully like an endless eternity. My heart leaped at every echo of footsteps passing the hall, terrified the men would suddenly reappear without warning again. Finally, the door opened once more. For one tense moment, my entire body stiffened hard, but it was Evelyn returning safely. She wasn't alone this time. Another nurse followed beside her. An older man with graying hair and a badge clipped clearly upon his chest. This is Head Nurse Daniels, she said calmly but firmly. He knows the staff on duty tonight completely. Daniels greeted us with a calm, reassuring voice and gently asked us to describe the two men clearly. When James explained that neither man wore visible identification badges at all, Daniels's expression hardened instantly. Then they weren't staff. Everyone on shift tonight wears a badge, and we account for every single one present. Whoever they had absolutely no right to approach you. Hearing that confirmed Evelyn's warning, but it also sent another cold wave of fear through me. If they weren't real doctors, then what exactly were they doing here? And what would have happened if I had followed them inside? Evelyn leaned closer again, her tone urgent, but steady now. They might come back again, but now you're prepared. Don't let your guard down. I'll be close by watching. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of fear and rising courage. I had made my choice, and now I had to be ready for whatever came next. The waiting room no longer felt safe at all. The walls seemed thinner now, the lights far too harsh, the doors far too open. But at least I wasn't helpless anymore. I had people standing beside me firmly, my brother, my mom, and a nurse brave enough to step forward for me. As I sat gripping James's arm, waiting anxiously for the next move, one thought kept looping inside my head endlessly. They wanted me, and I almost let them take me. The waiting room grew heavier, as though everyone inside sensed danger. I sat pressed tightly between my mom and James, my heart pounding each time the hallway door creaked open. Evelyn stood not far away now, arms crossed, posture firm like a guard at her post. She gave me a small nod, silently reminding me, stay strong. Minutes dragged on. The steady beeping of machines down the hall and the faint squeak of shoes on tile sounded louder than ever. My mom held my hand so tightly her fingers trembled. James sat straight-backed, eyes locked on the door ahead. He looked ready to leap up if needed at any second. Then it happened suddenly. The door opened again, and the two men in white coats stepped back into the room. The taller man's jaw was clenched tight, his polite smile completely gone now. The shorter man scanned the waiting room quickly before fixing his stare directly on me. That look made my stomach sink instantly. It wasn't the look of a doctor. Ready to help? It was the look of someone claiming what wasn't theirs. "Miss Hayes," the taller man said, his voice firmer now. "We need to take you in. Your tests are overdue." He stepped forward, ignoring Evelyn and the watching patients nearby. James was on his feet instantly, his voice sharp now. "She's not going anywhere with you. Show us your ID right now." The man's eyes flicked to James, hard and cold. "This is hospital business. Don't interfere." Evelyn stepped closer, her voice rising clearly now. "They're not authorized. Security." Her words sliced through the room like a blaring siren. Several patients gasped in shock aloud. One woman whispered to her husband, "They don't have badges." The tension suddenly snapped hard. The man forward, grabbing for my arm, screamed and pulled me back. Shoved himself between us, shoving man hard enough that he stepped. Chairs screeched against the as people jumped to there in shock. Let go, his voice louder than I. A taller man tried, his fingers brushing against my butt. Evelyn was faster. She backed by the shoulder and aside, her voice ringing out security. Now, two uniformed guards stormed in from the hall, immediately pushed the shorter man from me, while the other taller man's path. The imposters resisted at first. Trying to, the crowd was already against several patients, pointed and shouted, "They don't work here. Know them out." I sat, frozen chest heaving, as the scene guards wrestled the men back door. The taller one twisted. Grip, his eyes finding mine time. The look he gave run cold. It was pure, not regret. It was they had gotten me alone, have walked back out. Police wailed faintly in the distance, louder. The guards forced the hall just as two rushed inside. Evelyn quickly explained what had happened, pointing to of identification and the way had tried to force me room. The officers wasted no cuffed the two imposters, reading their rights as they protested, insisting it was a mistake. Voices no longer sounded convincing. Everyone had seen the truth. Slowly, quietly were dragged away. The waiting room erupted with anxious, scattered chatter. My mom clung tightly to me, tears falling freely. James knelt down before me, gripping my shaking shoulders. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" His voice shook with anger, mixed relief. I shook my head quickly, though my entire body trembled. "No, I'm okay, I'm okay." The words came out broken and uneven, more like convincing myself inside. Evelyn crouched beside me, her eyes steady on mine. "You listened," she said softly. "That's why you're safe now. If you'd gone with them, we wouldn't be sitting here right now." Her words sank into me sharply like ice. My mind raced with terrifying, unwanted images and possibilities. Me walking willingly through that door, trusting. Them blindly, being led down empty hallways, disappearing where no one could ever follow. The thought made me shiver so hard my teeth nearly chattered together audibly. The police stayed behind to take full statements. I told them everything clearly. It's the way the men had approached me calmly. How Evelyn warned me urgently. How they returned later and tried taking me forcefully. James gave his account to every detail, sharp, precise, and fueled by anger. My mom's hands shook as she spoke quietly, still drowning in guilt for nearly urging me to go with them. The officers confirmed something chilling. Neither man appeared anywhere on hospital staff records. Both carried fake badges hidden inside their pockets. They had entered a hospital pretending doctors in plain sight, planning to take a patient away unnoticed and quietly. And that patient was me. When the officers finally left with imposters detained, the waiting room seemed to breathe again slowly. People sat back down, still shaken, but calmer now. My mom wiped tears and held my face gently. James wrapped an arm around my shoulders protectively. I looked at Evelyn, standing just a few feet away, and mouthed, "Thank you." She gave a small nod, her expression soft yet serious, as though she knew how close I came to never leaving that hospital. The danger had passed, but memories of their eyes, their grip on my arm, and Evelyn's urgent whisper would stay with me forever. When the chaos finally settled and imposters were taken away, the hospital waiting room returned to something almost normal. The buzz of anxious voices slowly quieted into murmurs. The squeak of nurses' shoes filled halls once again. The faint hum of machines returned as background noise. But inside me, nothing felt normal at all. My chest remained painfully tight. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept replaying the moment one of those men grabbed my arm so roughly. If Evelyn hadn't warned me, if James hadn't stepped in, I knew for certain I wouldn't be sitting there alive right now. The head nurse Daniels came over and apologized sincerely, his face pale, voice heavy. "We'll be conducting a full security review," he said. "I want to assure you this isn't common behavior, but tonight was a serious breach of safety." Mom listened wide-eyed, still clinging tightly to my hand. James stood beside me like a shield standing guard, his jaw tight, glare fixed on the hallway beyond. When Daniels finally walked away, my mom turned toward me, her lips trembling uncontrollably. "I almost told you to go with them," she whispered in horror. "I almost pushed you into their hands." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know what I would have done if I lost you." I squeezed her hand and shook my head gently. "It's not your fault." They looked real. That's the scariest part. Let out a sharp breath, but Clara trusted her gut and she trusted Evelyn. That's what saved her. He looked at me, his eyes fierce with pride. "I'm proud of you for speaking up. Most people wouldn't have." Those words stuck with me. For so long, I had been the kind of person who avoided conflict at all costs, who never wanted to seem difficult or demanding, who trusted authority figures without question or hesitation. But that night, I learned something crucial. Survival sometimes depends on saying no, even when everyone nearby doesn't understand your reasons. Eventually, a real doctor with proper identification finally came to check me over thoroughly. He confirmed what I had suspected all along. I was completely fine, just stress, exhaustion, and far too little food or water. A simple fainting spell, nothing more. It should have been the most ordinary hospital visit. Instead, it became the most terrifying night of my life. When we finally left together, the cold night air hit my face like a wave. I breathed deeply, trying to shake away lingering fear. The city outside buzzed with life, car horns, headlights, and people walking home from late dinners. To everyone else, it was just another normal night passing, but to me, every detail felt sharper, heavier, more real. I was grateful just standing there, walking out with family, instead of vanishing behind closed hospital doors forever. At home later, none of us slept. My mom made tea quietly, her hands still shaking badly as she set cups down. James paced the living room, muttering about hospital security failures, about how close I came to being taken away. I sat on the couch, silently, a blanket wrapped tightly around me, the receipt from earlier crumpled inside my pocket. I pulled it out slowly, staring at Evelyn's hurried scrawl. "Don't let them take you inside." It looked so simple there, just a few words written, but it carried my life's entire weight. I folded it carefully and tucked it safely inside my journal pages. I knew I would keep it forever, a reminder of how fragile safety truly is. In the days that followed after, I couldn't shake the unease. Every time I entered buildings, I scanned carefully for exits. Every time I saw uniforms, I searched immediately for badges. Trust didn't come easily anymore. But mixed with fear was something else growing stronger inside. a sharper instinct to protect myself, to ask questions, to never let fear of seeming paranoid silence me again. My mom became more protective too. She called me 3 times a day, just checking in. James made me promise always to share my location. Whenever I went anywhere alone, first I felt completely smothered, but eventually I understood clearly. It was simply love. They had almost lost me once, and now they needed reassurance that I was truly safe. Most of all, I kept thinking about Evelyn constantly. Her courage in speaking up changed everything. She could have stayed silent. She could have looked away, but she didn't. She chose to act bravely, and because of that choice, I was alive and home. That night taught me a lesson I will never forget. Danger doesn't always arrive, obviously. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, dressed in safety and authority. And in those moments, survival depends on 2 simple things: listening to your instincts carefully and paying attention to people brave enough to warn you. Now, whenever I pass a hospital or see a nurse, I think of Evelyn. I remember the calm in her eyes, urgency in her voice, and how she refused retreat. She saved me by reminding me of something powerful. You don't owe blind trust to anyone. I survived that night not only because of her warning, but because I finally listened to my own fear and chose to act. And that choice is why I'm here telling you this story. Now, before you go, please subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me below where you're watching from all.